Imagine walking through the dark, silent corridors of Althorpe House in 1981. Chandeliers overhead illuminate portraits of ancestors who lived over hundreds of years. At the top of the grand staircase, a young woman in a blue dress descends slowly. Every movement is full of grace and naturalness. Her blonde hair shines in the candlelight, and her posture exudes an effortless, noble grandeur. She doesn't look like a shy teacher, but like someone born as part of this estate. The world knew her as Lady Diana Spencer, an ordinary girl chosen by fate to marry Prince Charles. The press presented her as a fairy tale bride, romanticizing a commoner's step into royal life. But the truth was far more complex. Diana's blood was not ordinary. Royal blood ran through her veins. Blood so intertwined with scandals, secrets, and forbidden relationships that, had it been acknowledged, the history of the British monarchy could have been completely altered. Before we delve into the secret lineage connecting Diana to some of England's most controversial kings and queens, if you enjoy discovering the truths that history books skip, hit the like button, subscribe, and share which country you are watching from in the comments. We are now bringing together these secrets from different times and geographies, all thanks to our curiosity for the truth. Diana's story does not merely hint at a noble past. It entirely reshapes our understanding of her role in the monarchy. The Spencer family tree is not just a list of nobility. It is a labyrinth filled with secret marriages, unrecognized children, and relationships that powerful monarchs tried to conceal. Diana brought more than just noble blood to the House of Windsor. She brought a royal legacy as legitimate as the Windsors' own. The truly surprising fact is this. Diana Spencer's claim to the English throne by lineage was arguably stronger than the family she married into. The Windsors changed their name in 1917 to assimilate into Britain, switching from Saxe-Coburg and Gotha to Windsor to conceal their German origins. The Spencers, however, have been an intrinsic part of the English aristocracy since the 16th century. And the secret ingredient in this line was the blood of kings who were never supposed to pass on their inheritance. Diana's ancestry contained not just one, but multiple unrecognized royal children. The lines of these children, born of scandals, stripped of their right to the throne, but whose blood secretly survived, converged in Diana centuries later. When Diana walked down the aisle of St. Paul's Cathedral in 1981, the world thought a commoner was joining royalty. In reality, political scandals and bloodlines hidden for centuries were coming together again. One of her ancestors is the direct line of Henry Fitzroy, the illegitimate son of Henry VIII. Born in 1519, Fitzroy was no ordinary secret child. He was officially recognized by Henry VIII, honored at court, and given the surname Fitzroy. For Henry VIII, Fitzroy was not a source of shame, but a symbol of triumph after his inability to produce a male heir. Though Fitzroy died young, his blood was passed down through quiet marriages and aristocratic branches to the Spencer family, and from there to Diana. Fitzroy was not the only one connecting Diana to Henry VIII's secret offspring. Diana's lineage also includes the legacy of Catherine Carey. Although officially recorded as the child of William Carey, Catherine's birth date overlaps with Henry VIII's affair with Mary Boleyn. Historians have long debated whether Catherine was truly William Carey's child or the king's unrecognized daughter. If true, Catherine Carey is another of Henry VIII's secret children, and her marriage saw her line merge with the Spencers. Consequently, when Diana married Prince Charles, she was not only bringing a noble legacy to the House of Windsor, but also returning the blood of the Tudors' most controversial king, Henry VIII, to the royal household. This means Diana's sons, William and Harry, carry not only Windsor, but Tudor blood, and when William ascends the throne, he will be the first monarch to unite both the legitimate and unrecognized Tudor blood. Diana's ancestral ties to royal scandal do not end there. Through the Spencer family tree, she is also linked to Eleanor Butler, a controversial figure from late medieval England. It is rumored that Butler had a secret marriage contract with Edward IV, which could have called into question the legitimacy of Edward's later marriage and his children with Elizabeth Woodville. Richard III used this claim to justify his right to the throne, asserting that the princes had no right to the inheritance. Eleanor Butler's supposed marriage triggered a chain of events that led to the end of the Wars of the Roses, Richard III's death at Bosworth, and the birth of the Tudor Dynasty during Henry VIII's reign. Through the Spencers, Diana was directly connected to these roots. Thus, Diana was not merely observing history. She was directly involved in its bloodline, having played a role in England's struggle for the throne. Diana's family tree also revealed many other secret connections. For instance, her ties to Margaret Beaufort, Henry VII's mother. Margaret's legitimacy was disputed. She was descended from the children of John of Gaunt and his mistress, Catherine Swynford, and despite later being legitimized, they were barred from inheriting the throne by Henry IV. Thus, the entire Tudor dynasty was built upon blood that was once forbidden to inherit the throne. Diana also carried this legacy, representing the determination and struggle of a family previously held back from power to reclaim its place. And the most intriguing part is that Diana's lineage stemmed not from just one or two secret royal affairs, but from multiple secret connections. 4 of her ancestors were mistresses to English kings, and 3 were linked to Charles II alone. Charles II, through his children born from countless private relationships, established bloodlines that would affect a quarter of Britain. Diana was not a commoner marrying into royalty. She was a living representative of the most controversial secrets. Charles II's relationships were not just court gossip, but strategic connections that deliberately shaped the aristocratic bloodlines. For example, Barbara Palmer and Louise de Keroualle bore children whose lines reached Diana. When Diana married Prince Charles, she was not just uniting with royalty. She was bringing bloodlines that had been barred from inheritance for centuries back to the throne. Another of Diana's ancestors was Arabella Churchill. A descendant of Sir Winston Churchill, Arabella became the mistress of James II and bore him a daughter. These relationships were not coincidental. They were important connections woven with strategic and noble families. The Spencer family tree, by incorporating the secret children of kings, ensured the survival of their legacy beyond mere nobility. Looking at this, the blood of Henry VIII, Charles II, James II, and possibly others flowed through Diana's veins. The legacy of kings' children, erased from a succession list but not from history, passed directly to Diana's sons. This makes the heritage carried by William and Harry unique, both the recognized royal blood and the forgotten, officially rejected bloodlines. When William takes the throne, he will not just be a Windsor king. He will be the first monarch to unite the accepted and silenced bloodlines of the English royalty, a fusion of houses fractured by politics, scandal, and centuries of secrecy. Diana's lineage even extended across the Atlantic. Through the Spencer heritage, she was connected not only to the British monarchy, but also to the American founding fathers. Her documented ancestors included George Washington, John Adams, John Quincy Adams, and other early presidents. This was no coincidence. It was a result of English aristocratic blood permeating America's political elite through noble marriages and colonial alliances. These connections prove that royal bloodlines shaped leadership in both England and America. The role of the Spencer family was not accidental. For centuries, they acted like guardians of an almost forbidden royal bloodline. Court records from the 16th and 17th centuries reveal a remarkable pattern. Spencer marriages were consistently made into families connected to unrecognized royal children. These were not random unions. They were conscious amalgamations to acquire bloodlines that could not openly exist in the monarchy but could not be lost. Beyond nobility, the Spencers were a parallel royal dynasty protecting the lines unacknowledged by the crown. This strategy becomes even clearer when examining Diana's Stuart ancestry. James Stuart, Earl of Moray, and the unrecognized son of James V of Scotland, was among Diana's ancestors and the half-brother of Mary, Queen of Scots. Moray was not just a sidelined, illegitimate child. He was a political force, organizing Mary's deposition from the throne and placing her son, James VI, on it. This shows that unrecognized children could possess stronger political instincts than legitimate ones. In Diana's context, this means her sons inherit not just the Windsor and Spencer traditions, but also the strategic legacy of figures like Moray. Political acumen, ambition, and the instinct to shape dynasties could re-emerge in the change of reign. And the most striking detail, how the royal households managed these bloodlines. Court records indicate that illegitimate children were not simply ignored. They were tracked, documented, and kept ready as a resource the monarchy might need in the future. This is where Diana's story transforms from a romantic fairy tale into a strategic tale of destiny. When Diana appeared in the 1980s, the Windsor family was not merely choosing a graceful and charming aristocrat. They were reclaiming bloodlines that had been hidden for centuries. Genealogists working for the court had long realized that Diana's lineage contained the densest and most valuable royal DNA outside the official royal family. Her engagement to Charles was not merely a love affair. It was the reunification of noble lines separated for generations. And this was not a coincidence. By 1981, the House of Windsor faced a quiet crisis. Years of inbreeding had narrowed genetic diversity, making the dynasty fragile. Diana's Spencer heritage, carrying deep bloodlines including the Tudors and Stuarts, provided the diversity and depth the monarchy desperately needed. Archival records reveal that Diana's background did not undergo just routine checks, but a far more comprehensive verification process. The supposed medical screenings before the engagement were actually directed at confirming the noble and royal blood from her ancestors. The Bullen connection is one of the most striking examples. And Bullen was executed for failing to provide Henry VIII with a male heir. Yet, the descendants of her sister Mary secretly preserved the bloodline, which reunited with the throne through Diana. This stands as a symbol of the triumph of bloodlines over politics. Henry VIII tried to extinguish his line, but the bloodline secretly survived and returned centuries later through marriage. Diana emerged as the carrier of the past's secrets and the monarchy's hidden legacy. Court experts had meticulously tracked this survival. The advisors of Elizabeth I carefully monitored the family trees and marriages of the Bullen descendants. These were not just records. They were strategic dossiers of valuable and dangerous bloodlines. The Spencer family's incorporation of these bloodlines was not accidental. It was part of a generational, secret plan for genealogical preservation. Furthermore, in the 16th and 17th centuries, court physicians arranged selective marriages to concentrate desired traits by uniting noble families. Physical appearance, temperament, and political aptitude were key criteria in marriage negotiations, and Diana perfectly embodied these qualities. Her height, striking blue eyes, and delicate features aligned with criteria once considered superior royal attributes. Diana's marriage was not just about social status. It was the climax of a centuries-long strategy of selective preservation and genealogy. When she joined the royal family, she entered not as an outsider, but as the most intrinsic member, carrying the monarchy's hidden, protected, and long-awaited heritage. And this was done consciously. It was no accident. Diana's lineage not only revealed secret origins, but also demonstrated how dynasties shaped the royal future using marriages, alliances, and medical procedures. The court physicians did not summon Diana just for an examination. They sought to verify the traces of royal DNA protected for centuries. This was a genetic verification process unprecedented in the history of the monarchy. The results were enormous. Diana carried far more royal lineage than other women who joined the House of Windsor. Her DNA contained branches from the Tudors, Stuarts, Plantagenets, and powerful European dynasties. She was not just an aristocrat, but a living archive carrying the concentrated heritage of royal history in her body. This became even more significant when reflected in her sons. William and Harry inherited not just Windsor blood, but also the traits of ancient bloodlines once thought lost. Analysts confirmed that they carried traits from officially disregarded but historically enduring bloodlines. William's lineal profile was unique. Legitimate and illegitimate royal bloodlines had merged over centuries and were reborn within him. When he takes the throne, William will not merely be a monarch. He will represent the reunification of England's fractured royal past. This is why Diana's death had such a profound global impact. Millions mourned not just a beloved princess, but the carrier of a royal legacy that was lost and restored to life. The public intuitively grasped the significance of the truth Diana carried. She was not a commoner who married royalty, but royalty embodied. In her veins were the genetic threads that connected the modern Windsors to the ancient kings of English history. The tragic irony is that Diana never fully saw the weight of the heritage she carried. She died without realizing that her DNA was the solution to centuries of royal weakness and decline. She was more than a modern British princess. She was the bearer of the most ancient crowns. In William and Harry, those traits are reborn. Their empathy, adaptability, and the balance of authority with authenticity are not just personality traits. They're the reemergence of ancestral characteristics carried for centuries through Diana's Spencer bloodline. The dark Tudor secret is thus revealed. The royal legacy is not fragile or easily erased. It is persistent, resilient, and far more pervasive than official history has acknowledged. Diana Spencer carried the ancestral memory of the thousand-year-old English monarchy, despite wars, reforms, betrayals, and systematic attempts at erasure. Her legacy is not only the love of her people, but the living manifestation of these bloodlines in her sons. This situation was of great significance, not only genealogically, but also politically. The Spencer family had consciously cultivated this role for centuries. Their marriages were not random, but strategically chosen unions aimed at incorporating and protecting the disinherited royal bloodlines. This heritage was silently preserved until the moment it was needed, and it was reborn with Diana's arrival in 1981. Diana's bloodline brought a renewed power to the monarchy and a fresh, authentic legacy. The fairy tale wedding, admired by the world, was, in reality, the climax of a genealogical strategy that had been hidden for centuries. When viewed from a different perspective, the tragedy becomes much deeper and more jarring. Diana was not just a kind and elegant princess. She was the genetic foundation of the modern monarchy, and her selection was meticulously made for the heritage she represented. Her sudden death was not merely the loss of an individual, but the loss of ancestral genetic traits that had been carefully guarded for centuries. These traits had been passed down precisely when they were most needed. That legacy continued to live through her sons, and an extraordinary trait emerged within them. William was the carrier of a phenomenon genealogists call convergent inheritance, a situation where ancestors from different lineages converge on the same royal figure, strengthening his characteristics. William's DNA carried a dense and profound genetic heritage that even some kings did not possess, far beyond just the Tudors. Comparisons with genetic samples taken from Tudor burial sites, Tudor, indicated that these traits had been preserved and strengthened through the Spencer strategy over centuries. The Spencers, whether knowingly or unknowingly, had created a royal bloodline more authentic than the official royal line itself. Diana's story held another secret. Documents unsealed decades later revealed that her selection as Charles's bride was not the fairy tale romance the public believed. She had been examined, assessed, and graded long before she even met Charles. Royal genealogists prepared lists of suitable aristocratic women and analyzed their ancestral nobility. Diana was not chosen randomly. Her bloodline, which brought together the most royal dynasties, was designated as the most valuable candidate. Court advisors directed Diana into Charles's orbit, ensuring their paths crossed and their courtship seemed natural. At least a dozen other candidates were researched and eliminated. Some had Tudor blood, others Stuart connections, but none carried the unique concentration of genetic amalgamation that Diana possessed. She was not merely a suitable match. She was the pinnacle of a genetic heritage preserved for centuries. Diana's connection to Catherine Carey, Henry VIII's controversial daughter, was also silently confirmed during this process. Archival work, burial site analysis, and trait comparisons corroborated this lineage. The court knew, even before Charles proposed, that Diana was not just an aristocrat, but a direct descendant of one of England's most powerful and controversial kings. The Spencer family didn't just collect bloodlines. They carefully selected them, marrying into families that concealed illegitimate royal blood, preserving each line like a piece of a puzzle. By the time Diana was born, an extraordinary genetic synthesis had formed, encompassing nearly every dynasty that had ruled England and Scotland. The results were visible in her children. William and Harry were not just Windsor heirs. They were living representatives of genetic diversity, power, and long-unseen traits secretly preserved over centuries. Court physicians noted in both children the physical stature, intellectual markers, and resilience characteristic of medieval kings. These were not accidental traits. They were the result of conscious and unconscious preservation over centuries. The Spencer family protected these bloodlines even as the royal houses tried to erase them. The political implications were incredible. Medieval monarchies deliberately prevented these powerful bloodlines from inheriting the throne because their strength threatened the fragile political balance. But these suppressed bloodlines were silently protected thanks to the Spencer family. By the late 1990s, the significance of Diana's ancestors proved to be much greater than initially thought. Advances in genetic science brought the hidden patterns to light. Diana's pedigree included bloodlines not only from England, but from all over Europe. Through medieval marriage networks, her line connected French, Spanish, and German royal houses, uniting those separated for centuries by war and politics. Diana was not just an English aristocrat joining the Windsors. She was a genetic bridge uniting dynasties fractured by centuries of conflict. Diana's connection to the Plantagenets was one of the most striking discoveries. Analyses showed that Diana carried the genetic markers of the Plantagenet line, which was thought to have ended with Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth. Through secret bloodlines, illegitimate ties, and private marriages, the Plantagenet DNA had been preserved by the Spencer family. This was not just a genealogical curiosity, but one of the most important discoveries in modern royal history. A dynasty disregarded for over 500 years was reborn in Diana, intensely and authentically. The modern royal family had unknowingly reclaimed, through her, a bloodline once altered by the Tudors. History had completed its own cycle. The throne, bent by political maneuvers, had unexpectedly healed itself through genetic means. The lesson here is profound. Even though dynasties rise and fall, the essence of royalty, the true ancestral traits, never vanishes. They are preserved out of sight through unofficial channels, awaiting their chance to re-emerge. Diana's sons represented that long-awaited moment. After half a millennium, the secret bloodlines and the official inheritance were united for the first time. When William ascends the throne, he will not just inherit a crown. He will carry the deepest roots of the British monarchy, bringing to light traits preserved for centuries through Diana's bloodline. Archival studies revealed a situation physicians had never encountered before. William carries the genetic traits of the most successful medieval kings and is protected against the hereditary weaknesses seen in modern royalty thanks to the diversity from long-separated bloodlines. These advantages were not coincidental. Diana's unique heritage had concentrated royal power across many dynasties and introduced diversity from long-separated bloodlines. William is, quite literally, the genetic culmination of over 500 years. In the Middle Ages, kingship was not determined solely by laws or inheritance documents. Carrying the ancestral legacy was paramount. True legitimacy was believed to come from embodying the fundamental qualities of past rulers. According to genealogical studies, William represents this fully. His genetic profile contains a combination of traits unseen in an individual for centuries. These studies also shed light on Diana, explaining why she clashed with royal expectations. Diana carried bloodlines selected for independence, authenticity, and emotional openness. These qualities, while dangerous to tradition and court rules, were captivating in the modern world. Her lineage included queens and noble women who challenged traditions, stood against male-dominated systems, and refused to be silenced. Diana's reluctance to fully submit to court protocol, her pure emotional connection to the public, was a reflection of these ancestral traits. Her independence was not a rebellion, but a genetic inheritance passed down over centuries. William and Harry carry the same emotional authenticity and independence, reviving qualities that previous generations worked hard to suppress. Court assessments in the 1990s noted how Diana's behavior paralleled that of queens throughout history who challenged authority and built their own power. These were not flaws. They were the traits of bloodlines intentionally preserved to prioritize authentic leadership. The genetic basis of Diana's independence explains why her conflict with royal expectations was so sharp. She was not rebelling. She was living out the generational, preserved tendencies for independence, authenticity, and resilience. In William, these signs were balanced by bloodlines that united authority and empathy, command and connection. He represents a genetic synthesis, able to reconcile the tension between rigid royal authority and modern democratic ideals in a way no previous monarch had achieved. Harry's heritage was different, but no less significant. His bloodline emphasized military leadership and protective instincts, shaping his military service, his devotion to his family, and his commitment to humanitarian aid. The difference between William and Harry was not accidental. It shows how Diana's bloodline distributed different facets of royal leadership among her sons. This genetic diversity was the hidden genius of the Spencer lineage. They preserved not just one type of royal trait, but many. This is why Diana's sons are uniquely adaptable, not trapped in the rigid molds of old royalties. They can adopt different models of leadership according to the world's needs while remaining connected to an authentic royal heritage. This adaptability explains why both brothers retain the public's trust. Their ancestral foundations allow them to exhibit true leadership while meeting democratic expectations, a trait that failed previous kings. Thus, as Britain enters a new royal age, the true meaning of that 40-year-old memory of the shy young Diana Spencer descending the Althorp house stairs emerges. She was not just joining royalty. She was completing a 5-century cycle, reuniting bloodlines that had been divided by politics and scandal. The dark Tudor secret in Diana's blood shows that the royal legacy is not merely a ceremony or a legend. It is a living power that persists and is carried through the bloodline, despite everything. While the world focused on fairytale romance and tragic endings, the real story progressed on a genetic level. Diana carried the raw, unfiltered traits of the kings and queens who shaped nations. Through William and Harry, these traits are being reunited after 500 years. Legitimate and illegitimate bloodlines, separated by politics, are converging in living heirs. When William takes the throne, he will not just be a monarch. He will be the representative of a lineage so ancient and profound that legal rights cannot fully explain it. He will unite the modern monarchy with its oldest roots, making visible again the roots that were suppressed, hidden, but never destroyed. The Spencers, though often seen as sideline aristocrats, proved to be the custodians of royal memory. Centuries of marriages and alliances were not just social maneuvering, but the unconscious preservation of traits the crown tried to erase. Diana's marriage to Charles was not an accidental love story. It was the culmination of one of the most extraordinary acts of genealogical preservation in human history. This shows, for the concept of monarchy, that true royal legitimacy does not rely only on law or politics. It relies on the authentic leadership, resilience, and command traits carried and transmitted through heritage and blood. Diana's sons represent precisely this legacy. Medieval theorists would instantly accept them as legitimate, not because of paperwork or agreements, but because of the ancestral signs of kingship. The tragic irony is that Diana never fully grasped the weight of the heritage she carried. She died without realizing that her DNA was the solution to centuries of royal weakness and decline. She was more than a modern princess of Britain. She was the carrier of the oldest crowns. These traits are reborn in William and Harry. Their empathy, adaptability, and balance of authority and authenticity are not just personality traits. They're the re-emergence of ancestral traits carried for centuries through Diana's Spencer bloodline. The dark Tudor secret is thus revealed. The royal legacy is not fragile, nor easily erased. It is permanent, resilient, and far more impressive than official history acknowledges. Diana Spencer carried the ancestral memory of the thousand-year-old English monarchy, despite wars, reforms, betrayals, and systematic attempts at erasure. Her legacy is not only the love of her people, but the living manifestation of these bloodlines in her sons.